Shift gears really quickly here on Live Now from Fox as we're talking about Jack Teixeira, the secret leaker there, getting 15 years from a federal judge. I want to take you right now out to law enforcement there on the ground in this case, providing an update on what happened during sentencing today.
Every one of us in public service takes to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Jack Teixeira abused his position of trust, and he exploited his top-secret clearance to access hundreds of classified top-secret information and then share them on Discord, a social media gaming platform that reaches over 150 million people across the globe. Jack Teixeira made the deliberate choice, day after day, week after week, for over a year, to share the nation's secrets that were entrusted to him and make them available to all comers. He was callous to the fact that he put our national security at risk, that he damaged our relationships with our allies, that he put the men and women who serve in the armed services overseas and in the intelligence community at personal risk to their safety. Today, Mr. Teixeira has paid a very heavy price for the laws he broke and for the incredible damage that he caused. This significant sentence sends a powerful message to every individual who holds a top-secret clearance. Anyone who willfully threatens our national security by illegally disseminating classified information will face very serious repercussions. I expect that starting tomorrow, Jack Teixeira's name will be mentioned when people are trained about the gravity of a top-secret clearance and the consequences if you leak information. Public service in the armed services, public service in the Department of Justice, and in the government is a privilege. It's a job with moral content that requires you to put country over self. Jack Teixeira took the opposite path. He put himself above his country. And you heard at the sentencing hearing, if you were there, in the filings that were made, about the damage that he caused through his leak of classified information. He leaked information that the government had determined could reasonably likely to cause exceptionally grave damage to the United States. It included information about troop movements in the Ukrainian theater, about provision of supplies to troops. It included information about a plot to kill Americans serving overseas by a foreign adversary. This conduct caused immediate operational damage and long-term enduring damage to our relationships with our allies, to our ability to gather information by revealing intelligence gathering methods, and through other consequences. We won't know the full extent of Jack Teixeira's damage for several years. Jack Teixeira told his cyber pseudo buddies not to worry, he wouldn't get caught. Well, he was wrong about that. Thanks to the dedicated team of investigators from the FBI and the prosecutors in our office, we put together an airtight case and secured a very meaningful sentence today. To close, I want to return to the men and women serving our country overseas, especially the day after Veterans Day, where we honor veterans, including my late father. They put their lives on the line for everyone in this room and everyone in this country. And today, justice was served for them and the integrity and bravery we would say serve our country. I'll turn it over to Special Agent in Charge of the FBI, Jody Cohen.
Thank you, Josh, and good afternoon, everybody. Jack Teixeira is a textbook example of an insider threat. This Air National Guardsman admitted that he intentionally, recklessly, and illegally retained and disclosed highly classified national defense information almost every day for over a year. Today's sentence holds Mr. Teixeira accountable for being one of the most prolific leakers of classified information in American history. His actions compromised military plans, sources, and methods, and allowed our most significant adversaries access to some of our most closely guarded intelligence. He knew what he was doing was wrong, he was admonished for it, but he continued to do it anyway. But why did he do this? Texeira told the FBI he did this to boost his ego, impress his anonymous friends, and set the record straight about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This was not a victimless crime. The exceptionally grave damage he caused will continue to impact our national security for decades to come. Mr. Texeira did not just remove and retain classified information, he transmitted it to our allies and our adversaries across the world. And as soon as he was found out he was going to be caught, he obstructed the FBI's investigation by destroying evidence and tampering with witnesses. No one is above the law, and the FBI will continue to investigate individuals who disclose classified material to those who are not authorized to receive it. I want to thank the dedicated team of agents, analysts, forensic scientists at FBI's Boston and Washington field offices for their incredible hard work and collaboration with the intelligence community. I'd also like to thank Acting U.S. Attorney Josh Levy and their prosecutors for their partnership. This was truly a team effort.
Can you take questions?
Yeah, but I also want to mention, and I overlooked to mention, we worked this case from day one with the National Security Division, and Christina Clark from the National Security Division is here as well. This is a collaborative effort across the Department of Justice and certainly with the FBI. Sorry, Christina.
Questions that include today that the case from the court-martial, that's been resolved? Can you tell us how that's been resolved?
Yeah, I don't have the details on that, Shelley. You're going to have to go to the Air Force to get that information. That is my understanding. It's been resolved. Philip.
There was a serious juxtaposition made with Edward Snowden and with Chelsea Manning. Can you talk about that juxtaposition, that comparison, in terms of the seriousness of the offenses of those individuals and that of Texeira, especially in the context of what was called grave security breaches?
So, we don't prosecute a lot of these cases as a Department of Justice, and we bring these cases as much, if not more, for the general deterrence message than for the specific deterrence of making sure Jack Teixeira doesn't leak information anymore. So those other cases are guideposts for the court, but there's so few of them that this case gets judged on its merits under the sentencing guidelines and all the factors that Judge Talwani considered in fashioning a sentence. So you look to those other cases as comparables. Each case is a little bit different in terms of what statute's prosecuted under. But I think the judge was taking into account the need for general deterrence in such a long sentence.
So the judge was also speaking, not in citing those cases, speaking, of course, not just to the defense and to the prosecution, but talking to the broader public, the United States public, in order to demonstrate the enormity of this crime. Is that correct summation?
I think that's a fair takeaway from the judge's comments. I think the judge recognized the gravity of this conduct and the enduring nature of the harm. We're not just saying it when we talk about we don't know the full consequences. Given the hundreds of documents that were leaked, they involved many countries. We're not going to be able to assess the damage for a long time. That's why the government makes it so clear to everybody who gets a clearance about the risks and the repercussions of leaking information, because it can cause exceptionally grave damage to the United States.
Can you explain how this could have been going on for so long?
Yeah, in the aftermath of this case being charged early last year, I know that there's been a lot of internal examinations at the armed services, and I think you need to look at the IG report to get a sense of that. Our mission here at the well, the reporting that's been out there about the mitigation efforts that have been made, that wasn't our task here to look at those systemic issues. Our task was to determine who was criminally culpable and hold them accountable, and then we did that today.
Can you talk at all about, I know there was a session prior, this was the case of classified information, and that, there was a hearing before the hearing, sentencing hearing, to make the judge aware of some things that obviously don't want to be made public. But can you talk about how that played a role here in not going to trial and trying to resolve this? Was that an issue with so much concern about more information getting out?
You trying to get me in trouble, Shelley?
You're already in trouble.
So the classified hearing pertained to the information that was filed under seal, and obviously I'm not at liberty to share what happened in that hearing. I think it's fair to say that the judge's sentence was a product of what was in the classified submissions and at the classified hearing, and what you all were privy to in the courtroom today. And I think you heard from the judge. She spent a lot of time focusing on the damage that could be that potentially was caused by the leaks that Mr. Teixeira made of this classified information. But I don't want to get into anything more about that hearing.
The specific information, I just meant in terms of that position that you want to push, for the maximum sentence you can get, but you also don't want a trial where you're worried about classified information coming out. And she was sort of grilling the government during the hearing, the judge, about why did you roll 6 counts together and only have him plead to 1.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if there's any sort of context you can provide without getting yourself in trouble.
I would say that the questions about the court about grouping was a sort of open issue under the guidelines. I don't think it really pertained to the classified hearing earlier. In a case like this, because we're trying to stop the bleeding, if you will, we do submit information under seal so the court can understand the full context of what we know about the damage without putting anything on the public record. And that's what was the content of the other submissions.
All right, can I ask, my understanding is the FDA is currently investigating more recent cases involving classified documents concerning the preparation for the public person. And I asked, A, how they're like to put the sentence in context with that new both, and also put the sentence in context with status.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to.
She didn't even let me hand it over. So, look, yeah, we're not going to talk about any pending investigation. I will say at a very high level, Nate, that we bring these cases so we don't have to read those headlines in the future about leaked information, and just hopefully underscoring as much as possible that whatever your motive, which is something that came up at the sentencing hearing today, you face going to jail for 15 years for someone who's never had any criminal record. And that's a very significant sentence for anybody, and I hope that it's a warning sign to anyone who's tempted about what the consequences are.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, you're just listening in there to an update there from officials following this sentencing by the secret leaker, the Pentagon secret leaker, Jack Teixeira there, that in the northeastern portion of the United States. Of course, we're following very closely since it happened. This a post from the Associated Press talking about it very, very closely as a federal judge on Tuesday sentenced the Massachusetts Air National Guard member to 15 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to leaking highly classified military documents about the war in Ukraine. Jack Teixeira pleaded guilty earlier this year to 6 counts of willful retention and transmission of national defense information under the Espionage Act following his arrest in the most consequential national security case in years. Brought into court wearing an orange jumpsuit, he showed no visible reaction when he was sentenced today earlier on. Of course, he's also said there, in referencing, he said, "I wanted to say I'm sorry for all the harm that I brought and I caused." This in a statement he said afterwards. Teixeira hugged one of his attorneys and looked toward families and smiled before he was led out of the courtroom. So some big news there in terms of a major Information Espionage Act. As you can see, this was what we're following outside of the courthouse in the northeastern portion of the United States. The Massachusetts Air National Guard member Jack Teixeira sentenced to 15 years behind bars for his impact there in this leaked classified military documents issue.